Hey guys, I wanted to show you our cured meats. Now if you saw the other video that I prepared on the ingredients, I took you on a tour of Italy. I showed you how the different meats are made. Some of the meats are whole, some are ground, some are salt cured, some are spice cured, some are mold cured. There's a whole bunch of different ways of making these meats. I wanted to walk you through specifically the 8 meats that we have in the house right now. Now this may change here and there. We might add a meat to it. As a matter of fact, there was a new law that was passed that's going to allow even more different varieties of Italian meats into the United States. So it's a good chance that we are going to add some meats over time. But these are the 8 that we're using right now. One of these is beef. The rest of these are all pork. Now, I'm going to show them to you. The first 4 here are whole pieces of meat. In other words, just a whole leg or a whole shoulder that's been hung and cured. And then the other 4 are meats that have been ground up, put into casings, and cured that way. So let's go through. Let's start at the beginning here. The first one, the beef one, is the Brucella. This is a roast beef that's been dried out. You can see how dark a color it got over time. This is prosciutto. Prosciutto in Italian means ham, which means that this is the leg. Ham means it's the leg of the pig. This next one is pancetta. This is essentially like a bacon. You can actually see that it's bacon. It's just been sort of rolled up, or the belly's been sort of rolled over itself. Very, very similar to American bacon, except that it hasn't been smoked like American bacon. It's just been salt cured. So it's got a little bit of a different flavor, but it is similar. The next one is actually my favorite. It's Capicola. Sometimes it's abbreviated Copa. We refer to it as Copa in-house. This is the shoulder of the pig, and just like I said, just really my favorite meat. The next 4 are the ones that are ground up. The first 2 are sort of coarse, and you can see they have different spices in them. That accounts for the different color. You can see on the pepperoni as well. These color differences are not from the meat. These are from the spices that are added. This one probably has more paprika and red pepper flake. These are the coarsely ground ones, and these are the finer ones. This is the pepperoni, and this is the finucchione. So we have soppressata, Toscano, pepperoni, and finucchione. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to take them out of the packaging and show you how to do that and get them ready for the slicer. Now before I take them out of the packaging, I want to talk a little bit about freshness. Very, very, very important. These meats are cured, which means they can last a very, very long time. And a lot of the staff members tend to think that that means that they can cut them in advance and they're going to last a long time. That's not the case. They can last a long time in the casing. Once the casing has been opened, all bets are off. These meats don't last very long at all, as a matter of fact. I don't even like to serve meat that's been cut more than 24 hours in advance. Every meat should be cut on the day of service. So that means you always under-prep a little bit. At the end of the night, if you're running out of one, you can always go back and prep a little more. We're using automatic slicers, so it's not very difficult to prep a little bit more. So if we're going into the sliced meat into the next lunch service with it, that we cut too much and now we've had to keep it overnight, it's just not as good. And certainly you don't want to go more than 24 hours at any time. So let me actually show you how we're going to deal with the casings on these. Now the first 2 don't have casings. They just come sort of, this one comes wrapped in a foil. This one comes wrapped, vacuum sealed in plastic. You just cut those off and they're ready to go on the slicer. The other 6 here all have some sort of casing that we need to remove. Some are pretty obvious. You just sort of cut off the plastic, and there's a little bit of extra plastic on the inside that you peel off. I want to just show you probably the more difficult one, which are these 2 that are the Toscano and the finucchione. You can see that they're all white on the outside. This is actually a mold. So these are put into a casing and they're sprayed with a mold that's sort of a protective organism, just like the yeast that we use to flavor our wines, or the yeast that makes our dough is a beneficial organism that changes the flavor of the food product. The same is true with these molds. So, but we're going to take it off where it's not really edible. So we're going to, although it's not dangerous at all, it's not edible. So we're just going to cut this part off. So what I'm going to do is, let's say I needed this much meat. I'm going to score around this way with a knife, and then I'm going to take my knife here and go down to that point, and then I can peel it back. So let's do that. So I'm just going to take a little of the meat. It's actually sort of easiest if I hold the knife steady at the top and then roll the meat under it. Okay. Now I'm going to make a score going lengthwise. And then that's it. Then I'm going to peel it back. Get a little start with my knife. I might have to go a little deeper. There we go. Just takes a second to get started. Okay. And that's it. Now I'm going to cut off the end, because the ends of all these meats tend to be pretty hard. I'm going to cut that off. Okay. And start cutting there. I'm just going to slice off this little extra piece, just give it a little trim that didn't peel off with the rest of it. And then that's it. I can put this on the slicer and I can slice all the way down to this point. So let's go over to the slicer now and let's talk about how to cut these meats. Okay, I want to discuss how we store and slice our cured meats. Some of these meats can be stored directly in a 6-pan. So what we do with certain meats like the pepperoni, the pancetta, the Toscano, and the Finucchiona, we cut a portion, maybe 8 slices, 10 slices, depending whatever on your par sheet, and we stack them together. Then we put a piece of patty paper, and we store another portion, 8, 10 slices, another piece of patty paper, etc. That way we can just pull up the patty paper, we get one portion of 8 or 10 slices, we peel it off and put it directly onto our pizza. However, some of the meats we can't really do that because a stack of 8 or 10 of these would actually sort of melt back together. The fat comes out and the meats are sticky and it would just be difficult to portion out quickly and accurately during service time. These meats include the Supersada, the Capicola, and the prosciutto. With those, what we do is we take a piece of plastic, these little plastic sheets, and we slice the meat and we lay it out in a single layer. And then we take a second sheet of plastic and lay it on top, and we just store it that way. That way we can just peel back the first layer, get to the cured meat, and lay it right on the pizza. We used to use these paper deli sheets, but we found that we had a problem with those also. So we don't use these anymore. What happens here, these are porous, so air can go through, and the meats tend to degrade very, very quickly. In the 6-pan, the meats are stacked together, so there's not a lot of air. But if they're going to be layered flat, it has to be using an airtight material, and that's why we use the plastic. So let's just get right to it. Let's just slice one of these. And obviously, I don't have to show every one of these. There's not much to show. The machine in your unit may be different than the machine I'm using here. So just consult your manager on the inner workings of your machine, how to set the proper thickness. Those will be on the par sheets. And also how to clean the machine. It's so important to keep these machines clean. So you can see I'm just peeling back this paper. Okay, just going to create a small portion for demonstration purposes. I'm going to throw this on the machine. Always use the guard. Okay. First couple of slices often don't come out that great, but it's okay. Layer it, single layer. And that's about enough meat for one of our 11-inch pizzas. Take it, take the second piece of plastic, give it a little pat down to get the air out, and that's it. This can then be folded up, and then this can be put in a 6-pan stacked up. And that's it. And it's the same with the other meats. Now the one exception here is the Brucella. The Brucella, we don't store it all. We just cut it directly to order. So every order that comes in the board, we just cut it fresh because we don't sell enough of it to really store, and wouldn't stay if we did. So that's it. So these are put in a 6-pan. These are put in plastic. This one is cut fresh. Okay, when I'm done with the meat, again, I don't want to cut more than I need. I'm going to store it in plastic. Just going to cap it off. And I'm going to date it. Make sure it's nice and sealed. Go around with your hand like this. Make sure it's nice and sealed, especially that the end is covered. And now I date it and I put it back in the refrigerator. That's it. Thanks, guys.